Ms. Plaskett, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I want to thank the witnesses that are here, especially the former chair of the committee, the Honorable Kevin Brady, and to the professors and the other witnesses that are here giving us their expert opinion. Of course, this is very interesting. You know, as a lawyer, I know that 3 lawyers will come up with 5 different opinions, and it appears that tax policy and tax lawyers, tax experts will do the same in terms of different opinions given the same data and what it means. I'm, however, looking at how things are affecting the American people and how Americans feel and how their everyday lives are. And I think so many of us here in Congress have been sent here to do that, to give opportunity and support to Americans so that their lives are better. While we're growing our economy, while we're continuing to try to make and keep America to be the best country in the world. Of course, we need a robust economy to do that. We need manufacturing and corporations. We need American innovation. I know my colleague Tom Swazi is not here, but I love his coin that he's a democratic capitalist. I would agree wholeheartedly that many of us on the committee are the same. But while we are looking at issues such as corporations and how well corporations are doing, I don't think the American people would say that they're doing as well as they had been. The tariffs have increased prices for American businesses, the small businesses, as well as workers, costing U.S. households so much more. These deliberate price hikes and tariffs, and especially, are making American lives unaffordable. And I don't think, and we saw in 2017 with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that while it helped corporations, American homes were not doing as well. And particularly in the Virgin Islands, I think we know that the provision authorizing the U.S. Virgin Islands Economic Development Program was affected by GILTI. Because oftentimes when tax policy is written, it seems to help corporations, but not in terms of thinking about those small individuals. The imposed GILTI tax regime on investments by U.S. residents in the Virgin Islands businesses has acted as a tariff on the United States Virgin Islands, an American territory. I'm really grateful to my colleague Ron Estes, who worked with me to sponsor legislation to restore economic vitality and investment in the Virgin Islands, the Revive VI Act, which fixed unintentional problems and restored the Virgin Islands' right to have an economic development program that would benefit our economy and workforce. And I'm hopeful that he and I will continue to be able to work on that. You know, we're talking about inflation outpacing wages, and it seems to be so for everyone except the wealthiest. Recent reports from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York show skyrocketing personal debt for American families, with both housing and non-housing debt eclipsing previous records. So we can't say that the economy is going well if the American people are not experiencing that at the kitchen table. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. That's what's important. Professor Clausing, we've heard a lot from my colleagues across the aisle and other witnesses about how TCJA and the One Big Beautiful Bill has had a wonderful effect on wages and growth. Is that your reading of the economic evidence? And what do you see as the main consequences of these legislative packages for the economy?
Thank you so much for that question and for your work. If you asked 100 economists to look at the data of what happened in the years after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and just look at the series of wages and the series of investment and the series of deficits and debt, they would have a hard time identifying when that tax cut happened because the trends, underlying trends, were nearly unchanged. There's been some very careful econometric work which has unpeeled some small benefits from the expensing provisions, but no discernible effect on wages. And one of the reasons is that the legislation expanded deficits and debt, and that acts as a drag on the economy. A lot of debt was added during the Trump administration. A lot of debt is being added now. That raises interest rates and increases costs for households, and that effect really dominates these other effects. In fact, when they did a dynamic score at Congressional Budget Office of the House version of OB3, they found that it had a higher cost than when they did a static score. And what that means is that the negative growth effects were dominating and making the legislation even more costly once you accounted for the fact that it had those negative consequences.
Thank you. My time is up. I yield back.